The roar of Harley engines tore through Arlington like a gut punch on Memorial Day, drowning out the solemn bugle in the distance. Four leather-clad bikers circled a pregnant woman crumpled by a fresh grave, her lilies trampled under their boots, her sobs lost in their crude laughs. "Move it, sweetheart. Your hero's dirt don't need no waterworks," the leader snarled, yanking her arm hard enough to make her wince, hand flying to her belly. The crowd froze. Tourists with phones half raised, vets muttering under their breath, but no one moved. Then, from the shadow of the tomb he came, the tomb guard, all crisp blue and unblinking steel, stepping into the fray without a word. One twist of grip like iron, and the biggest brute hit the dirt, gasping. The bikers wheeled fist flying, but the guard, he didn't flinch, didn't shout, just dismantled them, silent as the stones around him. Folks whispered, "Who the hell is this statue?" They saw a stiff in a funny hat playing cop on sacred ground. But what they didn't know, what even the MPs rushing in couldn't guess, was that this tomb guard had stared down death in the sandbox, lost a brother to it, and broken his oath of silence for the first time to shield a seal's unborn legacy from the wolves at the gate. Before we dive into this story, where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. And if you believe that values like honor, courage, and sacrifice still matter, join us in keeping their legacy alive. And the hallowed grounds of Arlington National Cemetery, where the whispers of fallen heroes mingled with the rustle of oak leaves under a late afternoon sun, Sergeant Elias Kane moved like a shadow forged from steel. It was Memorial Day, that sacred stretch of time when America pauses to remember the price of freedom, and the air hung heavy with the scent of fresh-cut grass and blooming dogwoods. Elias, all of 28, stood tall in his crisp blue uniform, the 3rd Infantry Regiment's hallmark, with the navy kepi hat perched just so, dark sunglasses shielding eyes that had seen too much in his days as a ranger. His white-gloved hands cradled the M14 rifle, not as a weapon, but as a solemn extension of duty. Each step in the changing of the guard was precise, measured. 21 paces forward, a sharp pivot. 21 back, the rhythm of respect etched into his bones. Elias hadn't always been this sentinel of silence. Back in a dusty basie in Iraq, he'd lost his older brother Jake to an insurgent's bullet during a routine patrol. Jake had been the talker, the one with the quick grin and quicker jokes, always ribbing Elias about his robot march even in boot camp. Now Elias chose this post at the tomb of the unknown soldier to honor that silence, to stand where words failed and memory endured. "It's not about the glory," he told his once, voice low like gravel under tires. "It's about the ones who don't get parades." And so he stood unbreakable as tourists snapped photos from behind the velvet ropes, their murmurs a distant hum against the eternal flame's flicker. Not far from the amphitheater where wreaths of red, white, and blue bobbed in the breeze, Sarah Thompson pulled her old Ford Taurus into a spot near Section 60. At 32, she carried the weight of loss like an invisible rucksack. 2 years since Petty Officer Ryan Thompson, her husband, a Navy SEAL with eyes like summer storms, had given everything in Helmand Province. An IED ambush, they said. Ryan had shielded his team, bought them seconds to return fire, but those seconds cost him his life. Now Sarah was 7 months pregnant with their first child, a boy they'd pledged to name after his daddy if he made it home. She eased out of the car, one hand cradling the swell of her belly, the other clutching a bouquet of white lilies wrapped in a faded American flag ribbon. The cemetery stretched out like a quilt of sacrifice, row upon row of white marble markers, each one a story etched in stone. Sarah walked slowly, her simple sundress fluttering against the warmth of her skin, a silver dog tag necklace glinting at her throat, Ryan's dog tag, engraved with his blood type and a verse from Psalms. She found his plot easily, the grass still tender from recent tending. Kneeling carefully, she placed the lilies at the base of the headstone, her fingers tracing the letters. Petty Officer, First Class, Ryan James Thompson. Beloved husband, father-to-be, hero. Tears welled up hot and unbitten as she whispered to the wind, "Hey babe, it's me and him. We're hanging in there. You know, doctor says he's kicking like he's training for the teams already. You laugh at that, our little frog man." Her voice cracked, the words tumbling out in that soft southern lilt she'd picked up from Ryan's Georgia roots. "I miss you, God, I miss you. But I'm trying to be strong, like you always said, for us." She sat back on her heels, one hand on the cool stone, the other on her belly, feeling the faint flutter of life inside. The cemetery felt like a sanctuary, a place where grief could breathe without judgment. Families picnicked nearby under the shade of elms, kids chasing frisbees with red poppy pins on their shirts. Veterans in faded ball caps saluting as they passed. It was America at its most poignant, raw, resilient, wrapped in the flag. But peace, like freedom, doesn't come without its intruders. From the direction of the memorial bridge, a low rumble built, growing into a thunderous roar that shattered the solemn hush. Harleys, four of them, black beasts with chrome gleaming like switchblades, tore down the access road, engines snarling defiance against the posted quiet zones. They swerved into the parking lot, tires crunching gravel, and screeched to a halt right in Sarah's path, blocking her car like a barricade. The riders killed their bikes, the sudden silence almost as jarring as the noise, and dismounted with the swagger of men who owned the road and everything on it. Leading the pack was Jack's razor Harlan, 40 and built like a brick wall wrapped in weathered leather. His gray-streaked beard framed a face scarred from too many bar fights and one too many tours in the sandbox. A patch on his cooter read Rebel MC, Ride or Die, flanked by faded army ink on his forearms, a screaming eagle, and the words Iraq '03. Flanking him were his brothers in ink and attitude. Spike, a wiry buzz cut with a perpetual sneer and a missing tooth from a brawl. Rusty, the heavy one with a dut spilling over his belt and a laugh like grinding gears. And Bull, silent but massive, his knuckles tattooed with hurt and pain. They'd ridden up from Richmond for the holiday, chasing the wind and washing away old ghosts with cheap bourbon. But Arlington wasn't their usual pit stop. Jax had grumbled about it earlier. Bunch of fancy graves for suckers who bought the dream. Let's raise hell for the real ones. Jax lit a cigarette, exhaling smoke like a dragon, and scanned the lot with bloodshot eyes. That's when he spotted Sarah, still kneeling by the grave, her shoulders shaking. Well, hell, he drawled, voice thick with that Appalachian twang, flicking ash toward the headstone. Look what we got here, boys. A weepy little mama bawling over some plot of dirt. Spike cackled, cracking open a Siller flask and taking a swig. Yeah, Razor, bet the stiff inside thought he was hot. Probably tripped over his own bootlaces. Sarah froze, her breath catching as their shadows fell over her. She looked up, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand and forced a steady voice. This is a cemetery. Please show some respect. Jack sauntered closer, boots thudding on the path and his crew fanning out like wolves circling a fawn. He loomed over her, the stench of leather and stale smoke invading her space. Respect, darling. We rode 200 miles for respect. This place, it's a tourist trap for flag-waving fools. Your boy's just another name on a rock. What's his story? Went Rambo and got smoked? Sarah's hand tightened on her belly, protective instinct flaring. He was a SEAL, Afghanistan. He died saving his team. Her words hung there, defiant but fragile. Rusty snorted, tossing an empty beer can that clattered against the marker. SEAL, huh? Fancy boy with a trident. My cousin was one. Came back in a box too. Big whoop. Move your knocked up ass. You're blocking our bikes. The group laughed, a coarse bark that echoed off the stones. Spike pulled out his phone, snapping a pic of Sarah's tear-streaked face. Smile for the gram, sweetheart. Hashtag gold star grief. Bull just grunted, crossing his arms, but Jax leaned in closer, his breath hot on her cheek. Come on, mama. Ain't no ghost gonna rise up and play daddy now. Hand over those flowers. Might make a nice ashtray. Sarah scrambled back, a heart pounding, one arm shielding her stomach as a sharp kick from the baby made her wince. Get away from me, please. Just leave. But Jax wasn't done. He reached out, snatching the bouquet from the grave and crushing a lily under his boot. Or what? Gonna tattle to the tombstone? From the amphitheater, Elias had just finished his shift, the relief guard taking over with a crisp salute. He was wiping down the M14 with a sham cloth, muscles taut from the precision march. When the roar hit him, his head snapped up, sunglasses hiding the storm in his eyes. There, by section 60, the bikers, the women on the ground, the desecration, memories flooded. Jake's grave in Ohio vandalized by punks on a dare. Elias's jaw set, a vein pulsing in his temple. Duty bound him to silence at the tomb, but here in the wider grounds the line blurred. He slung the rifle over his shoulder, unloaded, ceremonial, and started toward them, strides long and unhurried like a predator closing in. The tourists nearby stirred, a cluster of families and vets forming a loose semicircle. An older man in a VFW cap, Hank, 70, and wiry from Korea, muttered to his wife, "Something's brewing. Those boys need a lesson in manners." Phones came out, lenses zooming, but no one stepped up yet. Sarah's plea cut through. "Stop! That's my husband's." Jack shoved her shoulder, not hard enough to bruise, but enough to topple her backwards with a yelp as she lost her balance.